Welcome to the Service MVP podcast, and my name is Joe Crisara, America's service sales coach. And we have with us one of my very best friends, Jonathan Neves, who is from Green Energy near Boston, Massachusetts. John, say hi to everybody, please.
Hey, welcome. It's a pleasure. I'm super excited.
Yeah, me too. And definitely, John, it's like one of these people that the first day I seen you and the first day I met you, I'm like, man, I would say the easiest thing I ever did was fall in love with you and your team. So many great people that I've seen on your behalf speaking about the culture of green energy. One of the things I noticed though, John, is every time I look around, every time I turn to look at your page, it's like some new award that your team is winning of some sort. And that kind of leads me to believe that education is one of the things you believe in. Could you talk a little bit about that, John, and just a little bit about how education has kind of formed the culture of your company?
It's funny because people talk about culture so much and they'll talk about like ping pong tables and, snacks and stuff. And we don't have any of those things, but our culture is awesome. And I really feel like I didn't sit here and go, we have to have a great culture, but it just came back to saying I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to like really heavily invest in these guys and constantly help them to be better, And I feel like it's a slower ROI. It's taken longer, but once it started to really take off, it's just exponential at this point. And, the retention rate is wild. I mean, just before I started this podcast, one of my top guys was telling me about another person they wanted to bring over. So it's just like, it spreads and other people are hearing about it. And it just creates this really great work culture where people know that, the owners not only care, but they're heavily invested in your success. And so I feel like it all comes back to training.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the thing about the snacks and all that kind of stuff, and, we have the same thing here too, but truthfully, no matter how well you do those kind of fun and games, you got to put the work in with the employees to educate yourself and them. And, when you do the education, I assume it's not just give it to them. It's like you yourself are going through that. How important is that the leader themselves go through the same thing that their people are going through? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I tell everyone the same thing here. I'm like, like this year, we're going to do probably a little over 10 million, it looks like. I've never ran a $10 million company before. So the only way I know how to do that is to reach out to other people that have done it, that have worked with people that have done it, like Service MVP and other establishments, and take as much information as possible because, my thing is the more we grow, it's the more I have to give. And I can only give what I put into myself. So I am like an information whore. Like I'm always somebody has some information I need and I'm finding it. That's my philosophy.
You dive into it. John, let's talk about the three keys. You started out as a company that was when I first met you. I mean, how much were you doing? You're doing about running at about 10 million right now. That rate of 10 million. What were you doing when we first met? How much money was when you first saw us, or when
Under
you
a
first
million.
came on the scene? How much?
Under a million.
So under a million. And how many years would that you say we're taking from under a million to 10 years? What would 10 years do you think we're looking at?
Well, the first while I took the information and I didn't even use it. I just put it in a shelf and
that's right. I remember you came to a training and I'm like, hey, and then you came back and said I came to it, and then you put it on the shelf and didn't use it. You told me that story already.
Yeah, I thought it was stupid. I was it's like this will never work. And I think it was like 2015 or something, and I was like, yeah, this is stupid. I'm not doing this. And I didn't do it for it wasn't until like 2018 that I even was like, hey, wait a minute. I have an idea. Like it was my idea. Like,
hey, I know what we should do. Start making premium mid-range economy options and magic moments.
That's
and funny.
You know what? I think I told you this already, but I had a customer and they were like, we want the cheapest option. I'm like, I got you. I'm the cheap guy all day. Nobody could beat me. And so I walked in and I gave them the craziest crackhead cheap price you could give anyone. And they didn't sign. And then a week later, I'm like, Jim, he has to move forward. I called him up. He's like, yeah, I went with this other company. They actually sold me a 97% modulating furnace and a heat pump and all this. I'm like, wait a minute, you told me you just wanted air conditioning, you wanted the cheapest price, and you went with this. And that's when it was the aha moment for me. And it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, that call, because I literally, I have it right here. I went back and grabbed my total immersions folder, and I started ripping out all the pages, made a ton of copies and folders, and just kind of went through the whole training again myself. And from there, in 2019, we were at 1 million. So from 2019 to 2023, went from like 1 million to 10 million.
Wow, John, I'm so proud of you. You know what? It does take, sometimes it does take time. It's like you plant the seed and that seed just didn't have any, sometimes the fertilizer of that seed is when you get angry enough at something, you're like, that's it, we're going to learn. That's, for me, it was the same thing. It was like, I can't believe where I'm at right now. And I kept losing these jobs, and you can never sustain you cannot sustain a competitive advantage based on a lower price. I think you now realize that, right? But I don't worry about it, because I was a hard head too, like you. So that's why you remind me of a young me. When I was going through the same thing, I did the same thing, and I'm like, wow, man, I had this information and I just never used it. And things, I even at the books and the price books and everything, I created the same way, but I just never started it. But then I did get going on it. Well, John, thanks for doing it. Now let's talk about the 3 keys that you think
Okay.
for a service business to get to that point. If you're going to give advice to some of the young man who's out there, who's at 1 million right now or 2 million right now, what advice would you give? Let's start with step 1. What do you think step 1 would be in your cycle that started building this thing from the 1 million company that was just trying to piece it together to a $10 million company that is now an enterprise? Tell me about that. What's the first
Yeah.
step?
The first step 100% is training. Like, we have tech training, we do like interplay training. We have a very small physical training area where we have equipment. But 100%, I tell these guys probably every day that we have, and that's the other thing, we meet every day, but during those meetings, we're training. And during those trainings, I tell them the same thing, like, where you want to be, or excuse me, where you are and where you want to be, there's a gap. And in between that gap, it's filled with communication skills. And the
Wow.
only way you're going to get there is increasing your communication skills. I can only pay you so much to turn a wrench. You're like, what am I going to give you, another $1 an hour? What are you going to do with that? You can exponentially increase your income to whatever you want, but that gap has to be filled with communication skills. So to me, that's hands down the most important. Invest in their training and investing in their communication skills.
And then, well, thanks. I think we definitely, I think, is a key component. Number 2 was a very surprising one. I would think that everybody would realize this, but it was about the service and the sales team. But tell me a little bit about the balance between service and equipment when you first started. This is number 2, which is what, John? What do you think there is there?
Yeah, strong service department that has a really good lead turnover process. We found this out, honestly, this year. We had well, I shouldn't say this year, last year, end of last year, we had a horrible lead turnover process and a not so great of a service department, because we were just doing so well with install. We didn't really think about it. And we started investing heavily starting around December, January. And we started really focusing on these lead turnovers. And what we found is, even during a down economy, we're way up over what we were last year. Mainly because we're getting, really what I call it is getting leads off market. Like, if I was a real estate investor, I'm trying to find homes off market. That's all we're doing, is just finding those install opportunities off market. So that's the number 2, strong service department that's flipping leads to the sales department.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Real estate, if you're having to compete with other real estate agents to sell that same house, it's like sharks that are trying to compete for that house, and it's harder because you got not just the homeowner and the buyer. You've got other real estate agents could create interference, where when you get that off market real estate, somebody came to you directly and you sold it to another person directly, just much easier, right? And tell us about that. Tell us about the service and in the sales team kind of coming together. I know we had at a table, we had, they called the Boston Rat Pack. We had you, me, Steve Akean, Rick Picard, and we had Anthony Mound on the table there at the restaurant we had there in Boston. And all we did is talk about lead turnovers and getting that service and sales team together. Tell us about the impact of that meeting on you, John.
It's hard to even put into words, because again, like, seeing it from where it was nothing to where it's at now. It's just a synergistic blend where, it's again, when it first started, the guys were bad. So they were like, hey, do you want a new furnace? Or, okay, cool. I recommend you get a new furnace. Like, I'm recommending you a new system. So that was number one, bad. Then it was like, I'll have the office call you. So I'll leave the office call you, right? And then the sales guy comes there and they're like, I don't want a new furnace. Like, I don't even know what that guy's talking about, right? So again, like developing that, like, okay, let's get this process down where like, I know you didn't even call me here for this. Do you even want to see these options? Like, yeah, like almost making them like, yeah, give it to me. Like, all right, I can bother, I could get my guy here, but he's busy and are we going to get this done today? And I learned that from one of your podcasts from Rick Picard. And I'm like, that's phenomenal. Like, you shouldn't just be saying, yeah, let's get him here. Like, no, he's busy. Like, are we getting this done today? Okay, sure. Now get him on the phone. And then when you're setting him up for success, like, hey, Kevin's on his way. Kevin is phenomenal. Probably one of the best people, huge heart. I love him to death. And then giving that personal introduction. Hey, Joe, this is Kevin. Remember I told you he's a great guy. And then now you can't throw any smoke and say you weren't interested because I'm right here as a service tech. So now you have to be honest, and say, yeah, he was interested in a new system. So having that process really dialed in where everybody knows their roles is crucial.
That is great, and I think getting that strong service team. Sometimes people don't think that, hey, we're just going to sell installs, it's bigger numbers, but the foundation of every company, I think, is that concrete foundation that goes down 25 feet into the earth, down to the bedrock, or in your case, in the state of Massachusetts is mostly granite. Apparently, I
Yeah.
didn't realize. I didn't realize you can't. This the black dirt, just a little dressing on top. I didn't realize
Yeah.
that. but the bedrock is the service team, right? Would you say that's true there, John?
100%. And talking, I mean, we've had tons of conversations before. And one of the things I learned from you was your service department can be way more profitable than install. And one of the ways we do that is rejuvenation packages and bundled packages that first of all, you can't really shop around. You can't Google it. You can't ask another company for a rejuvenation. It's like, it's all this made up service that is exclusive to Green Energy Mechanical. And so it's like, I call it muddying the waters. You might have 2 or 3 other people you might know or interested in, but you can't get what we're going to give you. It's exclusive.
Yeah, you got what you offer and then what 10 other people do. And they have to decide between the person who thinks they can take care of the whole thing or the person who's just going to nitpick and do the basic thing, right? That's really interesting. John, let's talk about you as a leader now, because after you build that service team, and you got Kevin Stepnick, who that's how you pronounce his last name, right? Stepnick?
Kevin Polito.
Polito, I'm sorry. Kevin Polito, who went out there and did the stuff, who got there and has the character, the competence, and the communication abilities himself, allowed you to step away. How important is that step 3 that the owner really learns how to, for a job, it runs the business like an owner as opposed to a salesperson or a service tech himself? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, for where I'm trying to go to, there's a lot of people that still want to stay in a truck and kind of keep their hand on everything. And what I've learned is I really need to fire myself out of the positions that are taking up the most amount of time. And for me, one of them was sales. It's hard because honestly, I love sales. Like I love this process. It's funny because one of my new guys I had, quick story, we were on a call and it was a lead turnover. I went there, later at night, and I'm showing him how to make these things on code. And one of the things I talked to her about was our complete air treatment package, which is our indoor air quality package. And I told her, I did this for you because I saw that you're on oxygen and I can tell clean air is extremely important to you. She starts crying and she was like, you have no idea. And she starts going into this whole story. And I was like, shit, this is like his first experience with the lead turnover. He's probably going to think every single one of them goes like this. It's like everybody's crying and like, oh, you're amazing. But anyways, it's just, yeah. So I've learned that like, I need to separate myself from those things. And that's the only way that we're going to be able to get to the next level. And so I have to constantly invest in myself and then turn that into my team. And then I can continue to step away out of different positions.
I think the leaders like Kevin and other people in the office and who are helping to lead the team, that's the thing about it. The $10 million company, you're only limited to that growth by the amount of leaders you create. Would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it wouldn't even work if the leadership was bad, and and the other thing I feel too is all the leaders have to be speaking the same language. I went to a ton of different trainings for management, went to performance coach training, had this is turning into like a service MVP infomercial, I feel like, but
Well, if few fits.
but it is what it is. I don't care. I tell everybody the same thing, and I was going to that class thinking it was going to be a sales coaching class. I really didn't know what it was, and that's actually how I met Steve Akeen. We were down there together, and the class blew my mind. And I was like, this is the most simplest, easy, straightforward process that actually makes sense. And yeah, so now all my leadership, we all speak that same language. So, I tell them, let's say they start complaining about somebody, and I'm like, stop complaining, start training. And they're like, I know, stop complaining, start training.
That's good. And it's like I always say the first part of that is the language of responsibility to say, hey, there's a gap we have in the company, and that gap is on me. I didn't train the guys on what to do there. I didn't coach them. I saw they were trained, but we never got them. I never watched or looked in on it. I had a blind spot or whatnot. How important is that element of it, John, to say, it's like that's a good one. I might have to lift that. Use that. I'll quote you though. I'll put your name on the quote. Stop complaining, start training. Jonathan Neves. Is that okay if I borrow that one?
I'm with it, yeah.
But I'll give you credit for all that one. That's a good one. Because what it tells me is that there's something that the leader has done wrong. Not that they fell short because they have
Exactly.
not done the training and they have not completed the training or stuff like that. How important is it that when you do train people, you test them and to make sure that they are graduated to get out there? Because that's what those achievements I see, all the kind of awards you get, they to me signify that people have graduated something, that they haven't just started the program and ended it without graduating. Wait, tell me about that, John, John.
Yeah, that's how most of our trainings were before. It was just kind of like, yeah, I'm almost done, or like I've got done. It's like, okay, but like we have nothing on file. We have no, and the problem is when that happens, you can't hold them accountable. That's your fault, And so what are you going to say to someone if they say to you, well, I never was properly trained on that? And so when that happens, that's the first question, like something will happen. Maybe a leadership will complain, hey, we need to meet with so-and-so. First question, I'm like, hey, did you ever receive proper training on that? No. Then I'm stopping right there. I'm like, you know what? That's my fault. And what I found is your team is like, wow, like they've never heard someone in management ever say that before. Like, we're going to stop right here. That's my fault. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get you the proper training. We're going to reassess and go from there. And it's 100% all about care. Like we care. That's the only reason why you'd even do that, so.
I'm gonna hit you with a surprise question here now.
Yeah,
It's going to be one you probably have the answer to it, I think, but hopefully you will. Here's a question for you. What would you say to owners who say, I can't get my guys to sit down for a training, or I can't get them, my guys don't want to sit around in an office every day, jaw jacking and grab ass, and they want to get out there and start using their hands and working. They want to we're too busy for the training. All the kind of excuses that people make for the training. What would be your response to those owners? What advice would you give them?
I think for that, it would come to them, their leadership, and really their vision. I had an anonymous survey go out to my team because I thought everybody knew exactly what our vision was. And this was like maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And I was shocked at the answers. Like, what's your vision? To deliver world-class service. Like, no, that's not a vision. And so I was like, hey, you know what? Again, that's on me. I didn't do a great job at communicating exactly what our vision is, because here's why I say that. When people know exactly what the vision is for the company and where they fit in, then they're going to have a huge appreciation for that training, because they know that training is going to help them get where they are to where they want to be. And so they become invested in it. And then my team all sees how heavily invested I spend a ton of money, a ton of trips every year going to events. It's important for me. And so I let them know too, like they see that I lead by example with that. It's not like I'm saying, hey, and I think that's a bigger problem too. I notice a lot of owners do that. They'll send someone to a training. They've never been to the training themselves. And if they are in the training, they're doing this the whole time in the back of the room on their phones, not listening and applying it. So I don't do that. If there's any training, I want to go to it first.
So the advice would be, if you can't don't worry about your guys. You should get there first, and you get the training yourself. Then you train your guys. And truthfully, that's what real service looks like. The owner going somewhere, getting educated, and coming back and using that information to teach his team, or to use the assets he's got there to teach the team. Because then people are like, oh, where's the owner? He's out there at some conference. But if you don't bring something back to the team from that, it's like, when I remember a lot of people go on business trips, you're supposed to bring back a little toy or something for your for your family. Just bring back a T-shirt at least for your kids or whatever, to make them think that I was thinking about you when I was doing that
Yeah.
business trip, right? I think the same thing is true with this. It's like you're going to go on a business trip to go learn something. Let's bring something back for the team. This way they realize that, oh, I'm excited for John to go there, as opposed to, oh, John's going there and just taking time off. You're going there as a work trip, right, John? It's not a, although you do have fun too. We all try to have fun, but the fact that you're going there to bring something back. Would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%.
That's the thing. All right. Well, John, I think as usually a great podcast always starts on time, and a great one, I think, goes a little longer, which we did here, just a little bit, a couple minutes longer than we wanted to go. But John, do you have any final thoughts you want to share with anybody before we wrap it up?
No, I think we covered everything. I just love to see people win. So, let's put all the noise away. And I hear a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt from different owners. It's all noise. Don't worry about that. Just focus on what's most important and serving people, and you'll be fine.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much, John, and thanks to your team for taking the information we teach and putting it in place. That's the biggest piece of it, is actually using it, not just learning it. Thank you so much, John. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you, brother.